Let me ask you something. Have you ever laid in bed, staring at the ceiling, heart heavy, mind racing, feeling like your problems were too big, too complex, too far gone? You whisper a prayer, but you're not even sure if anyone's listening. Your needs feel endless, your energy feels drained, and those negative feelings, they're not just passing emotions, they're starting to feel like permanent residents. But here's the truth most people were never taught. You were never meant to carry those burdens alone. You were never designed to walk through the fire and hope God sees you. You were created to invite Him in boldly. This isn't just about prayer. This is about stepping into the spiritual authority you've always had but maybe never understood. This is about how to bring your needs to God with power, with clarity, with faith that shakes heaven, and how to overcome the negative feelings that have tried to keep you silent, small, and spiritually broke. Because listen to me, the problem is not your situation. The problem is forgetting who walks with you through it. You were not born to live in lack, confusion, or emotional chaos. You were not sent here to grovel at life's table, hoping to get a little more peace, a little more clarity, a little more joy. You were created with a divine connection hardwired into you, a direct line to source. Call it God, Spirit, infinite intelligence. It doesn't matter what label you place on it. What matters is that it's real and it's within you, not outside you, not in some distant place you visit once a week or in moments of crisis, right here. Right now, within you, you were designed to walk in a rhythm with God, not to merely survive and plead for moments of relief. You were designed to live in communication with the Creator. That communication is not meant to be occasional. It's meant to be constant. Bringing your needs to God is not a ritual. It's not just a quiet whisper before bed or a desperate cry when things collapse. It's a practice of alignment, of remembering who you are and what you have access to. You've been told for too long that you have to earn it, that you have to be a certain kind of person, clean enough, holy enough, disciplined enough to speak with the divine. But that's a lie born out of separation-based thinking. The truth is, you were born worthy, worthy of provision, worthy of guidance, worthy of clarity, worthy of divine intervention. Look around you. Every single structure in nature operates through connection. Trees don't beg for sunlight, rivers don't plead to flow, the stars don't ask for permission to shine. They simply express what they were created to express because they are in tune with their source. And so should you be. You are not excluded from that design. You are the highest creation on this planet. You are the only being that was given the power of thought, imagination, decision, and faith. That was no accident, but here's the trap. Life throws noise at you. Debt, heartbreak, rejection, sickness, delay, disappointment. It whispers in your ear that God's forgotten you, that your prayers aren't working, that your faith is weak. It clouds your inner ear so you start to believe you're alone, that you have to carry your burdens yourself. That's where negative feelings creep in, not because they're stronger than you, but because you forget the power that lives in you. And the reason we start to sink in anxiety, depression, fear, resentment, and guilt is because we step out of alignment with our source. You weren't built to handle life without divine flow. You weren't built to try to figure it all out through logic alone. You were meant to live through connection, through listening, through trusting, deeply, consistently, fiercely. Bringing your needs to God is not weakness, it's wisdom. When you bring your needs to God, you're not groveling. You're not saying, I can't. You're saying, I know who can. You're not stepping down in power. You're stepping up in identity. You're saying, I recognize that I'm not alone in this. I have access to something far greater than this situation, this problem, this emotion. And in that moment, you reconnect with your source, and that connection, when it's real, when it's practiced, when it's trusted, shifts things. You start to see beyond your current limitation. You begin to speak from a place of authority, not defeat. Your prayers shift from "please help me" to "I receive what's already mine," from "why me" to "watch me." That's what bringing your needs to God does. It reorients your perspective. It lifts you out of the low vibration of doubt and puts you back on the frequency of faith. And let's be clear, faith is not a feeling. Faith is a choice. You don't wait until you feel strong to bring your needs to God. You don't wait until you feel holy. You bring your needs to Him even when your hands are trembling, your heart is racing, your mind is confused. That's the power of it. That's when it works. When you show up even in the storm and say, "I'm still here, and I know you are too." This is not about religion. This is about relationship. And relationship takes honesty. It takes vulnerability. If you're angry, bring that. If you're confused, bring that. If you're tired, bring that. God is not surprised by your feelings. He already knows. You bringing them to Him doesn't offend Him. It activates Him. Because you're opening the door again. You're reconnecting to what's been waiting on the other side of your pride, your fear, your ego, your silence. And when you do that, when you shift your state from isolated to connected, your entire energetic field changes. Your frequency changes, the way you speak changes, the way you see yourself changes, and that's when things begin to move. That's when solutions begin to unfold. That's when peace begins to replace panic. Not because everything outside you changed yet, but because everything inside you did. And isn't that what you truly want? Not just temporary relief, but permanent power. Not just a band-aid, but a breakthrough. That's what bringing your needs to God does. It returns you to the knowing that you were never meant to handle everything. You were meant to partner with the one who can. This is a process. It's not something you try once and then give up when it doesn't work in 5 minutes. This is a way of living, a way of thinking, a way of becoming. You learn to recognize the triggers that pull you away from Source. You become aware of the thoughts that convince you to hold everything in, to solve everything on your own, to stay in the loop of overthinking and undertrusting. And when those thoughts come, and they will, you don't fight them, you don't panic, you return, you say, "No, I know where my help comes from, I know who walks with me." The most powerful people are not those who never feel pain. They're those who know how to transform pain into prayer, fear into faith, confusion into clarity. They don't deny their needs. They don't suppress their emotions. They bring them into the light. They bring them into alignment. They bring them to the Source that has no limits, no boundaries, no shortage, no delay. And when you live from that place, not just occasionally, but as a lifestyle, your needs stop being your weakness and they start becoming the access point to your greatest strength. Because when you bring them to God, you stop trying to control everything. You stop trying to figure out every detail. You start trusting the process, and you step into a rhythm where grace meets you before the anxiety does, where provision meets you before the panic sets in, where guidance speaks louder than doubt negative feelings. Fear, doubt, anxiety, guilt, shame, loneliness. They come in like uninvited guests. Sometimes they whisper, sometimes they scream, and often they linger far longer than they should. But here's what you were never taught in school and rarely reminded of in life. Negative feelings are signals, not sentences. They're not a verdict on your destiny, not a reflection of your worth, and they're certainly not permanent. They are indicators, like a dashboard light in your car, flashing to tell you something internal needs attention. But the problem is, most people don't treat their feelings as signals. They treat them as truths. They feel anxious and decide, "I'm weak." They feel doubt and decide, "This must not be meant for me." They feel overwhelmed and conclude, "I can't handle this." That right there is the lie. That's how negative emotions turn from a temporary storm into a lifelong prison. You begin to identify with the feeling rather than observing it. Instead of saying, I feel anxious, you start saying, I am anxious. See the difference? One acknowledges the experience, the other makes it your identity, but you're not your feelings, you're not your thoughts either. You are the awareness behind those things. You are the one watching the thoughts, feeling the emotions, navigating the energy. And when you wake up to that truth, something powerful happens. You stop being controlled by them. You stop reacting and start responding. You stop drowning in them and start decoding them. Think of it like this. If you were driving and a warning light popped up on your dashboard, you wouldn't scream and panic and assume your entire car is totaled. You'd know something needs attention. You'd check the engine, check the oil, maybe visit a mechanic. But you wouldn't drive off a cliff. Yet that's what so many people do emotionally. A single wave of fear, and they sabotage the opportunity. A moment of doubt, and they abandon the dream. A pang of guilt, and they shrink back from asking for what they need. And all of this comes from misreading the signal. The light wasn't saying stop driving forever. It was saying pause, reflect, realign. Negative feelings are invitations. That's what most people miss. They are spiritual cues nudging you back into alignment. They're saying, hey, you're out of sync with truth. They're reminding you that somewhere you've started leaning on fear instead of faith, on control instead of trust, on ego instead of spirit. The emotion isn't the enemy, it's the message, but most of us are so trained to resist discomfort that we miss the guidance hidden in it. Fear, for example, often points to growth. You're afraid not because something's wrong, but because something's bigger than what you've experienced. That fear says you're on the edge of expansion. But if you mistake that signal as a stop sign instead of a green light, you'll retreat. You'll talk yourself out of the very breakthrough God was preparing you for. Doubt is the mind asking for clarity. It's not evil. It's not weakness. It's a prompt. A moment to pause and ask, what am I believing about myself or this situation? Because doubt isn't the problem. Unchecked doubt is. When doubt is brought to the surface and examined with truth, it loses its grip. But when it's shoved down and left to fester, it multiplies. Guilt can be a wake-up call or a weapon. It depends on how you use it. If you use guilt as a signal, maybe you've gone off track from your values, maybe you said something that needs repair, it can bring growth. But if you turn guilt into self, punishment, into shame, into a personal curse, you start to separate yourself from grace. And when you separate from grace, you separate from God. You've got to begin seeing your emotional world as a landscape, not a trap. There will be storms, there will be fog, there will be darkness, but those conditions aren't the truth of the terrain. They're momentary. They pass. But what doesn't pass is your power to interpret, to choose, to redirect. That's where your strength lies, not in never feeling low, but in knowing what to do when you do. Here's what most people never learn. Mastery over your emotions doesn't mean controlling them like a tyrant. It means becoming a translator. You start hearing the deeper message behind what you're feeling. You ask, what is this emotion trying to teach me? What thought is fueling it? What belief have I accepted that may not be serving me anymore? And once you decode the emotion, you don't stop there. You bring it to the one who sees you fully and loves you anyway. You bring it to God, not to hide it, but to heal it. Because the moment you bring a negative emotion into the presence of divine light, it starts to lose its sting. It starts to break apart, not because you shoved it down, but because you exposed it to truth. And truth is the most powerful antidote to fear that exists. This is where spiritual maturity comes in. Immature thinking says, if I feel bad, Something's wrong with me. Mature thinking says, if I feel bad, something needs to be seen. That shift is everything. Because when you stop judging yourself for how you feel and start becoming curious about it, you step into your power. You stop being a victim of your emotions and start being a steward of your soul. And make no mistake, every time you choose to pause, to breathe, to listen, to ask, to align, you're building resilience. You're building awareness. You're building the kind of spiritual confidence that doesn't get shaken every time life throws a curveball. You stop panicking and you start processing. You stop spiraling and you start surrendering. And in that surrender, the emotion doesn't own you anymore. You rise above it, not by denying it, but by understanding it. Emotions are energy, they move. That's why they're called emotions, energy in motion. And energy is meant to move through you, not define you. But when you resist that energy, when you push it down, when you label it as bad, when you pretend it's not there, it doesn't disappear, it just hides. And anything hidden grows in the dark. That's why your power lies in being honest. Radical emotional honesty is not weakness. It's wisdom. It's saying, I feel this, but I know this isn't all I am. I feel fear, but I am faith. I feel guilt, but I am grace. I feel doubt, but I am designed for more. And when you start to live that way, recognizing the signal without accepting the sentence, your entire life shifts. You stop reacting from wounds and start responding from wisdom. You stop shrinking from emotion and start using it as fuel. You stop being afraid of what you feel and start walking in alignment with the one who gave you the ability to feel in the first place. Most people have no idea what's truly shaping their lives. They think it's their job, their relationships, their environment, their past. But none of those things are the true architect of your life. What's really running the show? What's really pulling the strings behind your results, your emotions, your patterns, is your subconscious mind. It is the control center beneath your awareness, and whether you realize it or not, it's where your beliefs are housed, your identity is anchored, and your expectations are projected. If your subconscious mind is filled with doubt, fear, limitation, and unworthiness, then even if you consciously want more peace, more clarity, more blessings, you'll keep attracting experiences that match the deeper script running below the surface. Now, here's the good news. Your subconscious is not fixed. It's programmable. It was programmed in the first place, and anything that's programmed can be reprogrammed. But here's the part most people miss. The most powerful tool you have to rewire your subconscious isn't just repetition. It's not just visualization. It's faith, and not just the kind of faith you practice once a week or when you're desperate. I'm talking about the kind of faith that becomes your operating system. The kind you breathe, walk, talk, and think with. The kind of faith that turns your relationship with God into a living, breathing force within you. When you bring your needs to God, you're not just throwing words into the air. You are planting seeds into the soil of your subconscious. You are taking spiritual truths and embedding them into the fabric of your mental reality. And if you do that long enough, often enough, sincerely enough, those seeds begin to sprout. They become your new identity. They become your new expectation. You stop praying out of fear and start praying from alignment. You stop asking for permission and you start standing in authority. You see, your subconscious doesn't speak English. It doesn't understand logic or reason. It understands emotion, imagery, and belief. And every time you come to God with heartfelt intention, every time you declare what you need, believe in what you ask for, and give thanks as if it's already done, You are imprinting your subconscious with a new version of reality. You are telling it, this is what I expect now. And the moment your subconscious accepts that expectation as truth, it starts reshaping your world to match it. You were never meant to beg for blessings. You were designed to believe them into being. You were never meant to wallow in struggle, hoping God notices. You were meant to walk in such a deep conviction of who you are in Him that the struggle has no choice but to bow. But conviction doesn't come from willpower. It comes from renewed wiring, and renewed wiring comes from faith in action. What does faith in action look like? It looks like affirming the promise even when the evidence contradicts it. It looks like speaking life over your finances even when your account is empty. It looks like choosing peace in the middle of chaos because your peace doesn't come from circumstance, it comes from source. It looks like waking up in the morning and saying, "This is the day the Lord has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it," even if your emotions don't feel like rejoicing yet, because your declaration begins to override your doubt. Your words start carving new grooves in your mind. Your belief starts sinking into your subconscious, and little by little your inner world changes. And when your inner world changes, your outer world follows. This is not about pretending. This is not about faking it. This is about training your system to expect the truth of God's promises, training your subconscious to accept blessing as normal, favor as standard, breakthrough as natural. Most people are trained the opposite way. They're trained to expect struggle. They're trained to expect delay. They're trained to expect heartbreak, betrayal, rejection. So even when something good starts to happen, they sabotage it because the subconscious doesn't believe it's safe or deserved or sustainable. That's why faith is not optional, it's essential, because without it, your mind keeps defaulting to the familiar, even if that familiar is painful. But with it, you begin to rewire that default. You start building a new normal. Not based on your past, but on your spiritual inheritance. And once your subconscious starts believing what your spirit already knows, momentum builds. You stop fighting yourself. You stop second guessing the goodness that shows up. You stop resisting the very answers you've been praying for. Faith isn't just believing God exists. It's trusting Him enough to act like what He promised is already true. And that kind of faith doesn't just shift your mood, it reshapes your mind. It plants new beliefs, and those beliefs create new filters. You begin to see possibilities where you once saw problems. You start to expect miracles in the middle of the mundane. You begin to operate from abundance instead of lack, from purpose instead of panic, from peace instead of pressure. Your subconscious is always listening. It listens to the stories you tell yourself. It listens to the emotions you feed. It listens to what you dwell on. And if you keep telling yourself you're stuck, that nothing changes, that you're not enough, it will believe you. But if you start telling it the truth, the deeper truth, the spiritual truth, that you are chosen, equipped, loved, supported, guided, favored, then it will believe that too. And once it believes that, everything changes. This is why bringing your needs to God is more than just spiritual. It's neurological. It's biological. Your brain literally begins to rewire itself based on what you continually feed it. And when you feed it faith, when you flood it with prayer, when you saturate it with truth, the old patterns begin to fade, the fear circuits quiet down, the trauma loops lose their grip, the survival mode eases off. And your higher mind, the part of you that's wired for creativity, clarity, and confidence, starts to come online. This is where transformation lives, not in just wishing for a better life, not in just forcing yourself to think positive, but in renewing your mind through faith-filled connection to God. That connection isn't just comforting, It's corrective. It brings your thinking back into order. It pulls your emotions back into balance. It puts your imagination back in your hands, and it gives you the power to write a new internal script, one that aligns with your destiny instead of your history. Gratitude is not something you practice only when things go right. It's not an emotional reaction. It's a spiritual strategy. Most people wait for circumstances to change before they allow themselves to feel thankful. They wait for the bill to be paid, for the sickness to go away, for the breakthrough to arrive. Then, and only then, they say, "Thank you, God." But that's not gratitude in its highest form. That's confirmation. That's observation. Gratitude at its highest level is not reactive. It's proactive. It's declaring, "Thank you." Before you see the outcome, it's praising before the walls fall. It's aligning with abundance before it shows up in your account. That's when gratitude becomes a force. That's when it becomes a channel, because it opens the flow of divine favor and repositions your spirit to receive. You see, gratitude is a vibration. It's an energetic frequency that communicates directly with your source. When you feel lack, when you feel fear, when you feel heaviness, those are all low frequency states. They are heavy, dense, and restrictive. And when you live in those states, you block the very thing you say you want. But when you step into gratitude, genuine, intentional, heartfelt gratitude, you lift yourself, not just emotionally, energetically, spiritually. You shift into alignment with divine order. And when you're aligned, things start to flow. Not because you're lucky, not because you're manipulating God, but because you're cooperating with the laws that govern spiritual manifestation. God doesn't respond to panic. He responds to presence. He doesn't move through begging. He moves through belief, and gratitude is belief in motion. It says, "I trust that it's already done, even if I can't see it yet." It says, "I believe in the promise more than the problem." And that belief attracts miracles like a magnet. Think about it. When your heart is full of thanks, you're not tense, you're not doubting, you're not overthinking, you're resting in expectation, you're watching for signs, you're tuned in, and that tuning shifts your perspective. You stop looking at what's missing and start seeing what's moving. You begin to notice things you never saw before. The small provision, the unexpected conversation, the doors that crack open slowly. Gratitude sharpens your awareness so you can catch the clues that fear would cause you to miss. Most people sabotage their own breakthroughs because they train their minds to focus on what's not working. They feed on complaints, they replay the struggle, they amplify the setback, and as a result, they reinforce lack. Not because God isn't giving, but because they aren't receiving. Gratitude repositions you as a receiver. It clears the static. It unclogs the channels. It puts you in spiritual posture to say, "I'm ready. I see it. I claim it." And the beauty of gratitude is that it doesn't require anything to change externally. You don't need a better job, more money, a bigger house, or even physical healing to start practicing it. You could be in the middle of loss, confusion, pain, and still choose gratitude. And when you do, it becomes a weapon. It becomes a way to say, even in the storm, I'm anchored. Even in the waiting, I'm blessed. Even in the unknown, I'm guided. That level of thanksgiving turns darkness into light. It changes your inner world, and when your inner world is changed, the outer has no choice but to catch up. You can't be anxious and grateful at the same time. The two states are chemically incompatible. Gratitude activates your higher brain, your creative mind, your faith centers. It sends a message to your nervous system that you are safe, supported, and secure, that you're not in survival mode, that you are a child of the Creator and have access to divine provision. When you embody that even for a few minutes a day, you retrain your system, you condition yourself to expect favor, and over time, what you expect is what you experience. This is not just a spiritual principle, it's a neurological one. Science has proven that consistent gratitude literally rewires your brain. It strengthens your emotional resilience. It expands your capacity to handle stress. It improves your immune system, your sleep, your energy levels. Why? Because you're no longer living from fear. You're living from fullness, and fullness attracts more. Lack repels. That's why some people hustle endlessly but never feel whole, because their energy is rooted in scarcity. But when you act from gratitude, you act from abundance, and abundance multiplies. You've got to train your mind to see blessings even in the middle of battles. That's not delusion, that's discipline. That's saying, this may not be what I wanted, but I'm going to find the gold in it. I'm going to mine the meaning. I'm going to thank God for what He's building in me while I wait for what He's preparing for me. That kind of gratitude matures your soul. It moves you from spiritual childhood to spiritual adulthood. It makes you dangerous to darkness, because no matter what life throws at you, you won't stop praising. Start small. Start with what's in front of you. The breath in your lungs, the fact that you woke up today, the strength to read these words, the tiny shifts, the unexplainable peace in the middle of chaos, the fact that somehow, despite everything, you're still here. That's evidence, that's proof, and when you honor that evidence with gratitude, it expands, it opens the gate for more to come through. Gratitude is a form of trust. It says, God, I may not see the full picture yet, but I know you're painting something beautiful. It says, this chapter might be hard, but I believe the story ends in victory. It turns your prayer life from a to-do list of complaints into a celebration of partnership. It transforms your posture. Instead of, Lord, fix this, you begin to say, Lord, thank you for already working this out in ways I can't yet see. This isn't about pretending everything is perfect. It's about declaring that, even in the imperfections, something divine is at work. Gratitude doesn't deny reality, it reinterprets it, it speaks from a higher lens, it takes you out of the problem and places you in the promise, and from that place nothing is too hard, no mountain too high. No wound too deep, no delay too long. You weren't made to wait passively, you were made to wait powerfully, and gratitude is how you do it. It doesn't mean you ignore your needs. It means you bring those needs to God with thanksgiving, knowing that the same source that sustained you yesterday will show up again today, and again tomorrow, because He doesn't change. His supply doesn't run out, and His hand is never late. There is a profound difference between hoping your life will change and intentionally designing that change through alignment with God. Hope waits, vision moves. Prayer, when combined with vision, becomes a force that breaks patterns, dissolves limitations, and draws the future into the present. But vision alone, without spiritual surrender, can become fragile, easily crushed by setbacks and emotional turbulence. And prayer without vision becomes passive, a waiting room without direction. But when you unite vision and prayer, you activate a spiritual law that turns unseen possibilities into living realities. You begin to co-create with your Creator, not from desperation, but from destiny. Vision is not just daydreaming. It is seeing with the eyes of your spirit. It is the ability to picture the life God intended for you even while standing in the middle of the opposite. It is choosing to see what's possible even when your past tells you it's not. Vision is internal clarity before there's any external proof. It's rooted in faith and fueled by imagination. That's why it's so powerful, because the mind does not know the difference between a vividly imagined reality and one that's already happened. And when you pray with vision, when you speak to God from that place of vivid expectation, you're not just speaking into the void, you're engaging with the blueprint of what already exists in the spiritual realm, and you're pulling it down into the physical. Prayer is not a ritual, it's not a last resort, it's not a speech to impress heaven. Prayer is communication with the source of all wisdom, all energy, all power, all provision, but it's not a one-way street. It's a channel of alignment, a recalibration. When you pray with vision, you're not begging for scraps. You're reminding yourself of what's already been written about you. You're stepping into a vibration of truth. And the moment your heart and mind agree on that truth, the universe responds, opportunities shift, relationships transform, doors that were once sealed begin to open, not because you forced them, but because you finally aligned with what was always meant to be yours. The problem is, too many people pray small because they see small. They bring limited visions to an unlimited God. They ask for survival when they were meant to thrive. They pray from fear, not from faith. And that energy carries through their words, through their thoughts, through their expectations. But when you combine a God-given vision with faith-driven prayer, something begins to shift, not just outside of you, but inside of you. Your posture changes, your tone changes, your mindset shifts from maybe to must. You stop wondering if it will happen and start preparing for when it does. You must understand that vision isn't fantasy, it's insight. It's a spiritual glimpse of what's possible through divine order. You don't invent vision, you receive it. It comes when you quiet the noise, surrender the need to control everything, and ask God, show me who I really am. Show me what I'm here to build. Show me what you've already placed inside of me that I've been too afraid to see. And when that vision comes, don't shrink it down to match your current circumstance. Stretch your belief to match the vision. That's where prayer becomes vital, because prayer strengthens belief. Prayer keeps the vision alive. Prayer builds resilience in the face of delay, doubt, and disappointment. Vision without prayer is vulnerable. It's exposed to every fear, every rejection, every piece of resistance. But when you protect that vision with prayer, you build a fortress around it. You surround it with spiritual energy. You feed it with truth. You defend it against the lies that say you're not good enough, not ready, not worthy. And you begin to walk in alignment with that future version of yourself, not in arrogance, but in authority. There is something powerful that happens when you start your day by seeing the life God promised you and then thanking Him for it as if it's already done. That kind of vision, prayer doesn't just influence what happens around you. It reprograms how you show up. You walk differently, you talk differently, you make decisions from abundance, not from scarcity. You speak to people from peace, not from pressure, because you're no longer reacting to the chaos, or anchored in the clarity. When vision and prayer unite, you move from begging to building, from panic to preparation, from hesitation to confidence. You begin to realize that you're not asking God to do something new. You're asking Him to reveal what's already in motion. You're tuning into His frequency so you can catch what's already being delivered. But tuning in takes practice. It takes stillness. It takes trust. It takes the willingness to pray even when nothing around you has changed, because something within you has. This is why so many people feel like their prayers aren't working. It's not that God is silent. It's that they're speaking without vision. They're praying out of fear, reinforcing lack, begging from an identity of insufficiency. And the subconscious, the spirit, the energy of creation, they all respond to the vibration behind the words, not just the words themselves. That's why when your prayer comes from a place of vision, when it's wrapped in clarity, gratitude, expectancy, it moves heaven and earth. It rearranges timelines, it accelerates outcomes, it aligns people, resources, timing, all to bring into form what's already been seen by faith, Start getting specific. Stop praying general prayers. Get clear. See the life you want to live. The peace in your home, the fire in your purpose, the overflow in your finances, the restoration in your relationships. See it, feel it, write it, speak it. Make it so vivid that your nervous system doesn't know whether it's memory or manifestation. Then pray from that place, not about what's wrong, but about what's becoming, not from worry, but from wisdom, not asking to escape, but to expand, and as you begin to live this way, something incredible happens. You start noticing alignment everywhere, the right people call, the right words come, the opportunities that once felt distant start appearing in your daily life. That's not magic, that's the law of spiritual alignment. That's what happens when vision is held and prayer is consistent. It's not always instant, but it is inevitable. Because when your vision is rooted in truth, and your prayer is fueled by faith, there is no force on earth that can keep what's meant for you from finding you.